All right. Almost 2 years ago, this March 15th, my 10-year-old son and I got into a little argument, and he went to his room and locked himself in there, and my husband and I tried to get in, and we struggled and had a hard time getting into the room. And once we got the door open, he was hanging from his bunk bed by a tie. I can't even describe like how much my world just totally crashed down around me in 1 second. I got him down and started CPR, and my husband called 911. Probably about 2 rounds or 3 rounds into the CPR, officer came in the room, Officer Drummond, I can say his name. I'd known him previously in our community, and he didn't hesitate 1 second. He just dropped down onto his knees and took over CPR for me. I just felt like so much relief, like I was carrying this really heavy, like life or death burden, and just felt like he kind of lifted it from me in that moment, and he took over CPR, and I jumped up and was it's really hard for me to even remember a whole lot about that time, but the emergency medical, the EMTs showed up shortly after that. They were trying to save his life. I was screaming that he needed suction because he'd thrown up when I was giving him CPR. And I was tearing through all of their supplies as they set them down, and they very gently escorted me from the room into the room next door. And Officer Drummond stood at the door as kind of a sentry to probably protect me and protect Justice so that he could be worked on. I kept screaming out and asking him, is he breathing yet? Is his heart beating yet? And he would just say, we just need to wait, let them work. He was just very patient and gentle, and also really firm too, because his job wasn't just to, keep me like calm or allow them to do what they needed to do to try to revive my son, but his job was also like, this is considered a crime scene, because obviously like they weren't bringing him back. And so like he really like drew that boundary really gently, like he wasn't nasty or rude or anything like that, and he didn't even say anything like that. I just kind of realized it later that was part of why I couldn't go back into the room. They went to go put me into the ambulance, and they were guiding me towards the front seat, and I said, no, I'm gonna ride in the back with him. And they said, no, we need you to ride up here. And I said, well, I want to see him. And they said, no, let's just go ahead and get you in the car so we can get going, or whatever they said to try to like deter me. And I broke away, and I ran back, and I saw them as they were lifting Justice into the ambulance head first. And so he was staring off into the sky, and his eyes were so beautiful, and his pupils were really big, and his gaze was fixed. And I just really knew in that moment, like he was gone. Like I still needed some time to accept it, of course. So we were riding on the way to the emergency room. Remember crying out a couple things. It was about a 10 or 15 minute, I'd say a 10-minute ride to the emergency room. I cried out to God, though you slay me, yet I'll trust you. And that's really profound, and it sat with me for a long time. I realized not even a week afterward that God didn't really slay me, that there's more to what happened with my son than I can see and I'll know someday. I immediately still trusted him. I went in and I sat down on a chair, kind of like where I'm at right now, and his bed was right here, the hospital, the gurney he was on, and he was laying there. I couldn't see him very well because there were so many people around. And I looked up, I think I was looking for my husband, and I'm not quite sure where he was in the group of all the people, but he had to get a ride from somebody else, so he showed up just shortly after I did. And I looked over at the door where there were a lot of people gathering and getting ready to walk into the room, and I saw a man, an older gentleman with thick white hair, who I'd recognized as a pastor of one of the churches in Sherwood, where my kids had actually gone to, what do you call that? Like vacation Bible school. So I pointed at him and I said, "Pastor!" And he walked right over to me and sat down next to me, and I just kind of like really quickly like poured out my heart, what my desire was. Like, I just, you know, I want to pray for, I want God to revive my son. I want him to breathe his breath of life back into him, and I'm just praying for a miracle. Please, will you pray with me? He prayed with me, and I was thinking about it later, how he didn't pray the things that sometimes, like, even I might pray with someone else who is facing the same situation. Like, he didn't say anything like about what looked like might be happening, you know, like whatever God's will is, or even if you don't, Lord, then so on and so forth. But he just prayed like in agreement with what my desire was. He just would repeat prayers similar to mine about God reviving justice and breathing his breath of life back into him. And that was really good that he did that, actually. And then maybe a minute later, he came back over, and I'm pretty sure that he knelt down in front of me. And he said, "I'm sorry, your son has died." And I just lost it. I'm not even sure like where anybody else was in the room at that point. It was still really busy, and lots of people and lots of equipment, and I'm pretty sure the pastor was just still in the room, kind of the chaplain. He was the hospital chaplain, that's who he was. I think he was just sitting there in his presence, probably praying, but I wasn't really aware of what anybody was doing around me. A week later, I still had some interactions with both Carla, who used to be a chaplain, and the chaplain at the Providence, Sherwood, or Newburgh Medical Center, named Ken. And then after the funeral, we did this lantern lighting ceremony in Sherwood with a lot of the community residents, and we lit up these flaming balls of fire into the sky. And I saw the chaplain from the hospital there, Ken, and he was just standing there pretty somber, and I walked up to him and I said, I'm not quite sure exactly what I said, but I just thanked him so much for being there for me. And he asked how I was doing, and I asked how he was doing, and he gently told me that he'd lost his sister that week. And we hugged, and I just really felt like we had like a connection through loss. So yeah, God wasn't slaying me. Like, he took a really horrible situation and he turned it into his plan, you know, like my son is safe. I'll get to see him again, and the enemy doesn't win in the end.